Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Too Many Men podcast. This is a real full-on episode because we are back. We are complete. Our favorite bestie who went and lived the dream, attending the last ever Eras show. Sara, you're magical. You documented the moment and wove it into hockey in your continued brilliance. I think this new Substack of yours has just given your voice full life. It's sending me, it inspires me every week. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much, Allison. I'm still a little out of it. It was hard to put the experience into words, but I'm glad even trying to do that reached the people that I think wanted to hear that. Yeah, the Substack's so cool because you can see what directly resonates with people and what doesn't. Like I, as the writer, have the data. And they give you so much good data. And it turns out like people who subscribe to hear what I have to say want to hear that kind of unfiltered. So that's been really cool and encouraging. And thanks to everybody for subscribing to let me write little off the wall stuff like that.
It's almost like the people who manage media outlets should pay attention to something like this. Who's to say? Remind people of the URL, Sarah, if they aren't already subscribed.
It's thecivreport.substack.com.
And we, of course, would not be Too Many Men without the ever talented. I always talk about her upcycling, but you had a Sabres piece on the other day that was sending me, Shayna Goldman. Your inspo knows no bounds. The third biggest Taylor Swift fan on this podcast. Shayna Goldman, say hi.
Hi. Yeah, that Sabres one was fun, right? Like the goat head blanket to find that
That was
was
sick.
and I have not made any blanket stuff for myself, and I was like, you know what? You guys can have everything else. I need this. I need this. I don't care how bad the pl team's playing. I need this.
Oh, the poor Sabres, man. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But we are back together. Thank you all so much for the people who enjoyed our emergency pod. We'll try and do a couple more of those if the moment warrants it. You know, if one of us has big time thoughts that just can't wait, we'll bring it to you. Let us know if you want more of those or if there's a topic you think we aren't talking about enough and we have to come online sooner. Just ping us. You can do that. But we're back, which means we're back with segments, which means Sarah Sivian, what time is it?
Time for a bit of news.
I thought you had the drum.
I did. I forgot to bring it back again. Like it's been a few weeks of absolute mayhem, but I will bring it back for next week.
Benny, we're really not kidding. If you want to record us a little intro bit, we will just insert
Yes.
it and make everyone's lives easier. We appreciate you so much. All right, it is time for Bit O News. Let's start off the ice because I think that this is some of the more crazy stuff. I don't know that we officially talked about this on the podcast, but a few weeks ago, and we on this show have had our beef with Paul Bissonnette for some of his choices and some of his takes on things and moving hockey forward. But I'm going to say in this moment, he has my full on respect. A few weeks ago, it is revealed that in defense of a local business owner in Arizona, he basically took a beating from 6 to 7 assholes, and I'm being kind. And video came out this weekend. You guys, like, honestly, I'm so happy he's okay. Like that looked freaking awful. And I think that those men should have the full-on book thrown at them. I think their charges have been upgraded to a felony. If you don't know what we're talking about, those men had earlier in the day been golfing and had assaulted a worker at the golf club that they were at, and then felt that it was well within their rights that if they couldn't get their way, which meant have more drinks than they should have, that they should physically abuse people. And Paul Bissonnette took them all on. It was wild. Um, Sarah, I know you've been traveling and busy. Have you seen the video and what is your take on all this? It's just incredible that people can be this big of a dickhead.
Yeah, it's just wild. It was funny when the mugshots came out and it looked like insurrection mugshots. It's like the whitest losers you've ever seen in your life. And then like it's just so fun. Like Biz is a career like he fought a lot of times in his career and it's like it, it's really funny and we're laughing about like whatever because it's Biz. But if this was somebody else that like it's six people trying to beat the shit out of you, like that's what the video showed. And it's just kind of I mean, it should be a felony, so I'm
Yeah.
glad that it's being charged as such, but it's just a wild like the news came out on like some like Fox Arizona or whatever that was like Paul Bissonnette has been involved in an altercation and whatever in the hospital. And it's just like, oh my God, what happened? So just to know that it was like him defending a local business that he goes to a lot is like good for him for doing that and getting in the mix. And like he probably knew, yeah, like I'm a career fighter and there are people that are not, that are did not professionally do this, that are being attacked right now. So let me defend that. Like that was a cool hero moment.
Shayna, I don't know. You watch far more wrestling than the two of us do, and we know that that's more choreographed than this. But like literally watching the video outside the CVS where he has no shirt, no shoes, and he is literally like being kicked when he's down on the ground and continues to get up. I- it was impressive and scary and terrifying all at the same time. What's your takeaway?
I remember when the story came out and I like in passing clicked it and read it and said like the injuries are said to be not life-threatening, but there was no other update and I was like, holy shit.
I was like,
But I
God.
like that he took to his platform. It was almost like because I think he even said like this probably wouldn't have been a story as much if it wasn't like published there and they were happened to be recording the next day and obviously you could see he was hurt. But he's someone that supports local businesses, and here was one that, and he does the right thing to a T, right? By standing up for this business for people who are just being assholes. But oh my God, did they like fuck with the wrong place at the wrong time? Because now their entire life story is being exposed, which is essentially being these like traveling grifters. There
Yes.
have been threads of like horrific things that they do. So it's like their karma didn't just catch up to them, for beating someone up. It's like all of their past misdeeds are going to come to light because and it's not, oh, don't do this when you're in a restaurant with someone with a platform like Paul Bissonnette. Like, don't do it at all. So all credit to him for taking that on. And I know some people are like, who was trying to help? And I think he said it was like the manager of the restaurant was out there trying, but like it's what are you to do? I mean,
Right.
like all credit to him, all respect to him. I'm glad he's okay.
Is this a band of traveling people that just like look for a fight and go around? That's
I
the
think it said
craziest
like
thing I've ever heard.
they start businesses and go town to town starting businesses that all have like shitty reviews, but they don't care
That's
to like
fucked.
take money and like take jobs that they don't do. I don't know. There was someone who like has an account doing this and I fell down like a rabbit hole and obviously like on Twitter it's hard to be like what's real, what's fake, but like there's like a whole Ponzi scheme that these people are like a part of. There's a name for this group too or something that they've been called and it's like this is all wild.
This is wild.
Karma is a biz in the street, not getting beat down by me. There you go.
Oh,
You
wow.
are welcome
Wow.
for that.
Even
Yes,
I
yes.
know that reference. Come on.
See, you're the third biggest fan on this podcast,
That's
Shayna.
me.
Good
Just like you're
job.
the third biggest wrestling fan. Maybe
That,
second now, though, since you're sending me wrestling clips.
listen, every once in a while things happen. All right, let's move on to some crazier news. And even though it's crazy as I thought about it, we can look at other warm markets to which this has already happened. But David Dwork, who covers the Panthers, put out a report that sources confirm that the Florida Panthers will host an outdoor game at Lone Depot Park, which, for those of you who don't know, is home of the Miami Marlins next season. When I heard this, I was like, that is insane. And then I remembered that Dallas has hosted a game and LA has hosted a game. It might work, but still, Sarah, good idea or bad idea?
I mean, we'll take it. Everybody gets an outdoor game now. So as this is evolving and going, and as the Blackhawks get their 7,000th, I'm like, all right, just try it. Sure. What the hell?
Dana, money grab or compelling?
I mean, two things can be true, right? I feel
Yes.
like the Winter Classic is that snooty vibe of
For the elites.
for the elites, yeah, of the traditional hockey markets. And that's fine, right? Like if that's what you want to do to celebrate the game, go off. But I like that the Stadium Series, it's unconventional markets. Let's bring something different. Are there too many outdoor games? Yes, but if you have two a year and this is your way to do it, I don't take an issue with it. I think that you could involve the Panthers in a Winter Classic. They would probably have to play like the Bruins or the Leafs. And listen, I am all about that, especially like give me either one right now. I think that would be sick. But if you want it in their home market, like here you go. I wonder who the opponent will be, right? Like we don't know. Will it be a Battle of Florida? Will it be against
Mm.
a Toronto or Boston? Which against Toronto in Florida, the media going nuts about how untraditional the market is. It would be delicious. So I'll take that too.
You know, that's probably it though, right? Because that's all the snowbirds go down there. And that's even when Florida wasn't good, that was when the building would always get its most full, was when they played the Canadian teams because the fans were all
Yeah.
already down there for.
But the whole we want Florida stuff, like there's so much there now that they really could run with it. You have Barkov versus Matthews, like give me this, please.
All right, let's move on. One more off ice bit o news, and that is that, you guys, it is dire in Nashville. They are at the very, very bottom of the NHL standings. They have lost their last 8 games, including last night when Roman Josi leaves the game with injury. We don't have an update as we go to record here. But head coach Andrew Brunette, with what is perhaps the quote of the week, maybe, as Sara suggested before we started recording, we'll start to have a quote of the week segment on this show. But he comes out and says, I could healthy scratch everyone right now. There are rumors that if he's fired, that Barry Trotz comes back behind the bench. There are rumors that no one knows what can be done to fix this team. Sara, what the hell is wrong with the Predators?
Guess who broke the Nashville Predators?
Tell me.
Canton, Massachusetts' very own Kevin Rooney. When he's scoring a goal and an assist against a team, I think it's not great. No offense, we love this is a Kevin Rooney podcast, as so has been documented for years and hated on. No, we support Kevin Rooney's rights and wrongs, and he scored against the Nashville Predators in their latest loss. This is brutal, guys. I don't think it's on Brunette, but like then you look at the weird things that have happened under his regime. Oh my God, I'm so tired from the regime.
How do we say it, Shayna?
Regime.
And how do we spell it?
Regime.
Look at that.
So he's supposed to be this offensive guy, and like they are the worst 5-on-5 offensive team I've in years, probably, right? Like just that was supposed to be good at least in decades, maybe. Like I just cannot fathom what's going on. It's like all these guys that are really good at even strength too, that were supposed to be good, that come to this team and just immediately dry up. Like what is it? Like what? I don't understand what it is.
Shayna, with all the problems on the ice, and listen, I like Barry Trotz. I've liked him for years, but is Barry Trotz flying under the radar with maybe not taking as much blame as he should? After all, he's the architect of the roster.
Yeah, like he came into the team and was like, we're not ready, we're not this, we're not that. And he rewarded the team for their run. But like I honestly don't blame him for being bold this offseason and saying, you know what? We're not that bad. When you have Yossi, Saros, and Forsberg, you're crazy not to say, okay, let's do something with this team because they have the up and coming talent and they figured it out and they turned it around. But there's so many things that you look at and you go, I get why they traded Ryan McDonough, but I think we forget how good he still is, right? Because you look at that, the time he was traded from New York to Tampa, from Tampa to Nashville, you go, that contract wasn't going to age well. Each time he got traded, you kind of understood it, right? But then you look at it and you go, but it is. He's not your traditional shutdown defenseman that the wear and tear is killing him. He's playing huge minutes. He is a massive reason why Victor Hedman looks like a Norris caliber defenseman again. He has stabilized Tampa Bay's back end almost single-handedly because everything's falling into place around him. And you replace him with Brady Shea, who maybe we give too much credit to the Kane system and not him now. Like maybe we were wrong about him and who knew what he was going to look like because it did seem like the Canes figured out his game, his strengths, but like it's not working. So that's one huge fuck up on the back end. And then you look up front and you're like, Stamkos, we all knew he was aging. We all knew that there were those even strength issues in his game defensively, right? Did we think it would just come to a head at this point? I didn't. I thought he was going to be pretty good there, even though he didn't have the same amount of talent around him. But the pieces, like you could see the flaws in it at the time, but I think we were all so excited about him in his first run as general manager, making big moves and doing the work to give Nashville what on paper they needed to succeed. But obviously the contracts haven't aged well, and he put himself in a situation where how the hell do you get out of this? Because you can't rebuild. You can threaten it all you want, but you're kind of locked in. So yes, he shoulders some of the blame.
Absolutely. I think it's funny that this is one of the situations I look at, and I think it might be structural. It might be a coaching issue, and he's the one coach like not getting fired. I don't know.
I have an issue with the coaching, and I have had issues, and like, listen, I've had issues with Andrew Brunette in the past, But I really thought when he was with New Jersey, it was the step back from a head coaching position he wasn't ready for, and he was a great associate coach. You look at the Devils last year and how different their offense was without him, and you're like, wow, maybe he was the voice the Devils needed all along to get them going. Maybe he was the perfect fit in either an associate role or just whatever it may be. Maybe he is ready for that. And you look at how they turn things around. Like he does deserve credit because his problem in Florida was he didn't adjust enough. But I look at it now and I'm like, you don't have answers for anything. And at some point, like you were given a better roster than last year and you're not figuring out ways to make it work. It falls. I put him primarily at fault right now because of his whole career to date. But I think we need to give Barry some shit as well. And I'm sorry, like I love Trotz as a general manager, but like two things can be true, but I still put more on Brunette.
All right. So in terms of quote of the week, on a scale of 1 to 5 fire emojis, where do you rank this, Sarah?
I'm not going to give it a 5. I'm 4.5. 4.
Dana, what's yours?
I'm giving it a 3.8 because I think there was
3.8.
a yes, we use decimals in this economy.
Yes.
I'm using I think that there was a bigger one last week that got my attention a little more, and it was the whopper of a trade for to be my quote of the week. That was in the fours. This scale's just behind it.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, that will transition us. I was going to go somewhere else first, but we'll go there because this might bleed into a Miko Rantanen from me. But we had our
It
we
could
had
be. Oh wait,
what's
no, I'm
that?
sorry. Sorry,
What?
go. No,
What?
because I'm like Miko ranting. It's funny because we start ranting about like Mika Zibanejad, but then I'm like, oh wait, the rant is the part of the. Just I'm tired. Leave me alone.
So Shayna and I brought you the emergency pod on all things Jacob Trouba, but the discourse has continued out of the whopper of a trade rumor that apparently now everything is centered around Brady Tkachuk and whether or not he's going to be traded. And Ottawa's pissed off that this is out in the news. And here's here's the beginning of my Miko rant then. Everyone on this podcast has put out opinion pieces or actual news reports and has been undermined by quote unquote established hockey hashtag insiders that we didn't know what we were talking about or that what we were saying was out of line or that we should be more careful. That is a real thing that has happened to each of the three of us on this podcast. And I would argue that each of the three of us, as do many, strive to do our actual jobs as professionally and accurately as possible. And then this insane report comes out that it's going to be a trade for Brady Tkachuk. And everyone's out there being like, well, Brooksy put out this report and, maybe it's not wholly true, but, I don't think Brooksy would make this up. And I am just incensed. Sarah, your thoughts?
It's just, it's not the first time he's done this, and the job is precarious and the job lends itself to public mistakes, right? It's okay. It's all about how you handle the mistakes and it's about how the rest of the world handles the mistake, right? Like I think I don't know, like the latest in this honestly was at the Taylor Swift concert and like out of it forever. But I know that there are GMs coming out saying that this didn't happen and it's not tampering because the report is false. And it's just like, if that ever, I would be screamed at by a GM, and I have been screamed at by a GM for doing something that was true, not false. You know what I mean? Like, there have been true reports that have come out that I've gotten screamed at for. So I just don't understand why this man who is notorious for making reports more than what they actually are, or like the whole thing was more speculation if you click on the article and go behind the paywall, but what he tweeted out seemed different than what it actually was. And it's just annoying that we're the first people discredited and nothing, there's no I don't want there to be some huge repercussion for a journalist getting something wrong, but we have to bend over backwards to be correct, and have our correct things are constantly undermined. But
and never be first. We're not allowed to be first.
No, this was just accepted as fact. And now people are refuting it. And I don't know, my brain is broken thinking about it sometimes because it's just like, I think he doesn't have to admit he's wrong, but I have to say sorry about true reports. Like,
Right.
I don't get that.
And for the record, let's go back, and we're going to get to this more fully in a second, but Sara Civian was the first hockey journalist to report that Thatcher Demko was going to be out long term. Folks, over 200, what is it, 250 plus days later, he makes his first start last night. And yet everyone said Sara didn't know what she was talking about and she needed to double check and she should be more careful. Sara Civian was not just first, she was correct.
That's insiders too, when
Yep,
they have this boys club where they all defend or ignore Larry Brooks, but they refute me and they tell me I'm wrong. So
exactly.
it's not, that's not fair.
And to that point, Shayna, and I'll let you, if you want to talk on that, of course, we want to hear what you have to say. But also, I want you to comment on, so the quote is soft tampering. And what blows my mind about this too is like, this is all coming from all these insiders whose literal job is to put out into the world. I'm hearing it could be, this might happen. How is that not soft tampering, but this one is? Your thoughts?
It's okay. I don't think Larry Brooks necessarily pulled Brady Kachuk out of his ass and went, I'm just going to write a story for
Yeah,
the clicks, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure the Rangers want Brady Kachuk. I'm sure they want a lot of people. I'm sure they want to stir up every bit of drama they can right now. Just like the reports of what if they trade Mika Zibanejad to Vancouver for JT Miller, just so that gets out. Like, listen, let's be smart here. Let's use critical thinking. And we also need to keep in mind every team wants every good player. And how many general managers say it? Like, oh, if you call every day, a general manager could call every single day and go, you know, I want player X. And maybe on day 600 of making that phone call, a team would be like, all right, sick, here you go. Like, I don't know. I feel like people need to like keep that in mind. But I hate how everyone just takes it as fact and jumps with it. Meanwhile, the Thatcher Demko reporting gets torn apart. Or I remember the JT Miller Pittsburgh chaos, right? I was told how wrong I was numerous times, and then it gets reported by other people as fact, and that's okay. Because, oh, it didn't happen, it must not have been speculated. And it's like,
It's crazy.
well,
It also speaks to the news economy right now that like
yeah,
this is so commonplace.
yeah,
yes.
it's so frustrating. And that was like our first thing we're talking about. Like, I have no problem if people want to take him at his word and take a deeper look into it, but then don't discount. And I get it, he's been in the industry for a long time, right? And a lot longer than us. But that, like, come on. Like, can we approach things differently? Can we evolve as a fucking society? Uh, yeah, that's my part of the ranting in there. As for the soft tampering, this situation is so dramatic. It is ridiculous. And I get it. People don't want Brady Kachuk to have to deal with this and think, oh my God, the Senators might want to trade him because it's not like life imperfect is Ottawa right now. But like every single play, this stuff gets talked about constantly, right? Like to me, it's ridiculous that you're going to say this is soft tampering, but the fact that on July 1st at noon, 15 contracts are announced at 12:01, and that's not like where are we drawing the lines here sometimes? Like it's all just messy. If you want to say that like this can't happen and things have to be handled differently, then so many other things have to be handled differently. And I feel like the NHL gets so dramatic about this when this is like part of what makes the NBA so exciting.
There you go.
There it is. There it honestly is.
All right. Thus endeth our Miko Rantanen, sandwiched into Bit-O News. We will now move on to some couple more final Bits-O News that are actually more on the ice related. And we'll start with some good news, some positive news. Patrick Laine, who was traded to Montreal in the offseason and then in preseason suffers a knee injury that keeps him off the ice for way too long, comes back, scores in his debut, and now has 3 goals in 4 games. He's also been actively talking about online how mental health remains to be an important priority. Sara, I know this was valuable to you, not just to see the player come back and be productive, but also for him to share messages that go beyond just playing on the ice.
Yep, I think it's a great lesson in you receive the help that you need. I mean, he got hurt, obviously, but during the off season, he's been working on his mental health. He started an initiative. He's been passionate about that. He's still posting about it with his company that he has started on Instagram. I want to do a deeper dive into that later. I want to talk to him about it too. So there'll be things coming up with that, but maybe we can talk about it more in the pod because I think it's kind of vague and we should, like, I want the public to know more about what it's about. But the way, I don't know, he handled the injury and was so, I don't know, accepting of what had happened, even though it sucked. He must have been so frustrated, but he comes back and he has the resiliency built up from stepping away, working on his mental health. It just goes to show, I don't know, like sometimes when you hunker down and you don't take the time off that you need, it's like things just get worse and worse to where you totally blow up and you don't perform at all. And I don't know, I just thought it was awesome to see somebody who has in the past taken time away and then had to take time away this time and it wasn't under his control. But he comes back and it's 3 goals in 4 games on a team. That's a fresh start. It's like, I don't know, not to be corny, but your fresh start even if it's not on schedule, can still happen.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And Shayna, Montreal has had their fair share of issues this season. They're still rebuilding, but I think maybe the bloom is off the rose and a lot more frustration is starting to show. So, how helpful is it for Montreal to have not only some good news, but maybe some light in terms of some more productivity on the ice?
Yeah, I think it's great for them because, the Canadians, we don't expect to necessarily be good this year. We expect them to be better than they currently are. Um, but to have scoring, like that's a big part of it because I'd say they have very good goaltending. I'm a big fan of Sam Montembeault. So you have that aspect, you have up and coming defensemen, and you have some really good forwards. Like if you can be good offensively and have your goaltenders kind of save your ass defensively a little bit, like that's promise. That's a start to help building, and then you can work on the defensive structure as you go. So it's definitely good to have that. And I feel like I hope he's just going to be a good presence in the locker room, and I feel like he's going to because the way he talked about things, like it's a breath of fresh air. And I think we need to keep in mind the pressure that someone has probably felt as a second overall pick who showed confidence. Remember, he said, like him saying back then he could be the first overall pick. And some people were like, wow, I love that he's ballsy about that. And some people were like, you shouldn't talk like that. And it started right fucking there for him. And then the underperforming here or there and the comments and whatever it may be. Now he's in a huge media market. Day one, here he is wearing the jersey, and people are like, those are the pants he chose to wear. And it's like, yes, he has personality. So if he can kind of open things up in the locker room a little bit and add his flair and add his personality to the mix, I feel like a team that could use it in such a traditional market, I think it's going to be a good thing for everyone on top of it. So I really like what he could bring to the fold.
And speaking of new faces in new places, there was a big, well, I thought it was a big trade this week in that Colorado is moving on from Georgiev. He has been sent to San Jose, and they now have a full-on woodpile in their goaltending tandem as Mackenzie Blackwood is now an Avalanche. And we knew that it was dire in Colorado. We knew that they were struggling with their net minding. But I feel like we are underselling the fact that Colorado has now literally less than 30 games in completely overhauled their goaltending with 2 trades and some other transactions. Sara, is this enough for Colorado in net? And how impressive is it that Chris McFarland actually was able to make this all happen and completely change who he has playing in goal?
Yeah, I think it's a clear example of identifying the flagrant issue and doing the best you absolutely can at the time. I love it. I think there has never been like so clearly, other than I guess you want to look at the Devils last year, where it's like, no, the problem, I keep saying never. I don't know, this year, I don't remember what happened last week. This season, it's very clear that the Colorado Avalanche's main and maybe only huge problem, other than injuries and people being out, is the goaltending. Like it was atrocious and scary. I'm scared. My children are scared. We cannot watch the Colorado Avalanche because of this goaltending. So I think you bring exactly what you have to do. Absolutely remove the variable, right? There's a new entire tandem, and we'll see what the next few weeks teach us. And I like the idea of doing these things earlier in the season while your team still has a chance, right? You got 3 guys in the top 10 in scoring, and this team is imploding. Like it's obviously the goaltending. I think you got to see what happens and then like recorrect. I don't know. You saw the Bruins, they fired Montgomery. I think we saw what happened with the 8-1 loss with them. Obviously, it's not all paradise in the world of Jeremy Swayman, but they got rid of the GM. That's a whole different story, but you know what you mean. He fired somebody in 20 games, and you just got to get these things going quick if you want a chance.
Shayna, I always enjoy reading your trade evaluations on The Athletic. You always have such a great take and can have some really quick analysis as you watch these two trades settle in. And the Avs are winning more games as of late. Is this enough for Colorado to get to the postseason and maybe make some noise?
For now, yes. So this was one I had a story for Monday on the goaltending tandem in Colorado, and it was supposed to be that going forward, Georgiev and Wedgwood was not enough. I didn't like it. I was legitimately annoyed at that trade the more I thought about it because Noonan, I think, has potential. He's young. I don't think he was ready to play in the way that Colorado needed him to, and that was the problem. And if you're bringing in Wedgwood and you're saying, okay, he can share the net with Georgiev, your problem isn't is that your starter is not good enough still. Like I thought it was a band-aid because as good as Wedgwood has been in the past, he's 32 years old and his last season in Dallas wasn't good and he played behind a great defensive team. He wasn't good to start the year in Nashville. Granted, he's been a lot better lately in Colorado. He looks great so far with his new team, but you look at it and go, yes, you managed to come back down 4-0 to Buffalo and win the game. You couldn't do it against the Dallas Stars, a legit contender you're going to have to face. Third period comeback wasn't enough. And then they couldn't do it against Carolina. And I'm like, I have to write about this. And I wanted to say, get a goalie. And I really like the idea of Blackwood there because he's so cheap and he's so good this year. So the trade, I'm like, yes, 10 out of 10. Perfect. Love it. I really like Blackwood. He has all the raw skill to be a really, really, really good goalie, but it did not work out for him in New Jersey. And I think that's a separate conversation because I think a lot of goalies haven't worked out in New Jersey. And you look at Markstrom this year, and he has not been at the same level that he was in Calgary last year either. I really wonder because a lot of goalies are there and they're struggling and then they leave. Blackwood and Panicek are two of them and they perform better elsewhere. But I think the Sharks have really upped his value. I think they sold at the right time because you don't know how he would have withstood that workload all fucking season. They're that bad defensively. Now he goes to the best team he's ever played on. I think that's absolutely fantastic. And for Georgiev, you know, the results don't matter for them. If Askarov plays more, even better. If they can save any of his value, right? And let him settle down because he was not handling the pressure of playing behind a team with, mounting pressure to contend. Maybe it helps everybody. If it doesn't matter, right? So it kind of is a win-win for everyone. You get this goalie off the board who makes 2.35 million a year on the cap. That's huge for a contender versus a Gibson who has multi-year commitments and a higher cap hit. Like, that's fantastic.
Well, that takes us a nice segue into full-on hockey talk. And we're going to start on the depressing end, my friends. I have to say that this past Monday was one of the most depressing nights of hockey I've ever watched. When Anaheim at Montreal is the most compelling game, you know you have a problem. And it's only compelling because Jacob Trouba is playing his first game there. And Jacob Trouba is playing his first game in Anaheim because he left a team that, y'all, I don't know. New York is not having a moment. They have 2 wins in their last 10 games. They are still bad. The vibes are bad. It's not looking good for them. They suffered their last loss to the team that was at the time the worst team in the league, that being the Chicago Blackhawks. Shayna, this is in your backyard. Are the Rangers irretrievably broken?
They are most definitely deeply, deeply, deeply fractured, and it was not just Truba. Now, nobody thought they were going to snap their fingers and just be good after Truba left, right? And just because they're still bad without him doesn't mean they shouldn't have made this move. I know the locker room is struggling, but I think they were struggling with them there because of all the issues from the summer, right? Like this is a bigger problem. I think the vibes are wrong and obviously players need to step up. And I think Laviolette was asked after the last game, is anybody stepping up and taking and filling that void? Like not yet. But I also look at it and I'm like, yes, but there's bigger problems than that. Everything's going wrong for them. And you watch them on the ice and struggling against teams they have no business losing to. Yes, they beat Pittsburgh, great and wonderful, but
That
you're
doesn't count.
it doesn't count. You're 2-8 in your last 10. So I I spent a lot of time watching video on them, and I actually talked to someone who I like trust their opinion on the game a lot, and had to like empty my thoughts to be like, am I an idiot for thinking this? That it's just too complicated that they just need to stop and simplify things. And I'm not someone that thinks you need to play the most like basic style of hockey, but like for someone like Ryan Lindgren, who I just was like really zoning in on. I'm like, your job is to defend and you're not doing that. And I think it's a systematic issue. And I think it's hurting all these different players, including Truba, that you have to be so aggressive in all three zones. And it's just not working out because now you're not generating offense. You're spending so much time playing defense. The puck management is bad. And you see all these issues coming up that I look at it and as much as I blame, yes, the players need to execute better, the coaching is fundamentally broken as well because this is Peter Laviolette's system. I don't think they're doing a good job implementing it and adjusting it for the roster. They're going, here you go, this is the system, play it. And did it work last year to an extent? Yes, they went very far last year. They went farther than they should have, and it was because of goaltending. They had 5-on-5 flaws. And year one of Laviolette's system tends to work well. Year two, it doesn't. And I think there's two big reasons. One, it's a lot of wear on players playing this like aggressive style. Two, teams can scout that, especially when it's a coaching tendency year to year to run the same system over and over again. Now you have a full year of information to say, not just we know how Laviolette plays, but this is how it works in New York specifically. So you can scout that better. And I think teams are just picking them apart. So everything is broken and they might need to make more roster changes to fix it, but I think the coaching needs to fix it. I think the players need to step up. I think everything is going so south right now that they have to figure out a way to just stop the bleeding. And I can't help but think just simplify everything and go from there.
Sara, are the Rangers still in Trouba post-trade?
Oh, yes. That it's even worse because you did the thing and then you still have the exact same problems. So I don't know. It was never a good vibe to make your captain the scapegoat. Even like waking up and deciding that when like most smart fans already knew that he was getting overpaid, and then like when you kind of admit that, I don't know. I it does raise an interesting quandary about what do you do when you're a new GM with a new vision for a team and you take over, but you have these horrible contracts you need to deal with. I guess I don't think publicly trying to shop him and nobody wanted him and he didn't want anybody, like that created a weird vibe around the team. Then you're calling out Chris Kreider, but it's like the danger in calling out these leaders in the room and then these leaders on the ice, right? Like Kreider has scored some of the most important goals for the Rangers for the past few years. So it's like there's a way to call him out that isn't like, oh my God, we immediately want to trade him. It's like, no, he has to do better. And maybe in obviously trade rumors come up, but it's just something that the past Rangers have not they've kept really closed-lipped. So I think that's the expectation maybe the players have, which is why it hits this locker room so harshly. But it's clear that it has hit the locker room, and they look like they're just like standing on the ice and not playing hockey. It's not like they're trying. So there's something fundamentally broken, yes.
So, in a game tonight that will have concluded by the time this podcast reaches your ears, which I think most of the hockey world is going to hate watch because I'm calling it the, well, I guess someone has to win bowl. The
We have to
Rangers are going to
Monday's
play.
mid off between
It's
Detroit
not
and
even
Buffalo.
mid, it's below mid.
Now it's below
Below
mid. I
mid.
think Monday though, like Detroit, Buffalo, it's like what else do you call it?
Well,
That's so funny that it was what was it, 5-6 shootout? Like,
yes,
how else would that game happen?
exactly. And Sara, I want to take you to the team that the Rangers are going to be playing in the Hate to Watch It Bowl, and someone has to win, the Buffalo Sabres. They are one loss shy of having the current loss streak record, which is held by Nashville, as we mentioned. The Sabres have lost 7 games in a row, and in heartbreaking fashion. I feel like even if I'm not watching it and I'm checking the scores, they're up and then they lose. They're up and then they lose. And then their poor GM, Kevin Adams, comes out with a full quote of, look at the Bills, that being the Buffalo Bills. They are a perfect example. I assume this wasn't a destination or a place people were signing up to when they were in a 17-year playoff drought. You get Josh Allen and people are lining up because they get a chance to win the Super Bowl. And he is being lambasted for saying that part of the problem is that in Buffalo, they don't have palm trees and we have taxes. Kevin Adams is getting ripped, but there is some truth in it, but maybe his phrasing was just god awful. Sara, what do you make of Kevin Adams' press availability and also the state of the team that he general manages?
Well, they're calling me woke on Twitter this week, so I'm going to say taxes aren't the problem. I think the problem is you haven't made the playoffs in a decade and a half. Maybe we should talk about that. And you lose once you think you are going to make the playoffs, you lose 7 games in a row every single year. It's 7 games every single year. And no team that has, what is it, lost 8 games in a row
Seven,
has
seven.
7 has come back to make the playoffs, right?
You'd
And then they
think.
thought, because I know that because we saw them do that last year, and it was going to be like, wait, maybe they'll make the playoffs. And then everybody wrote their think pieces about how it's never happened, but this team could. No, this team can't. This team can't, and it's not because of the taxes. And everybody, oh, I don't know. You can't shit on these small market teams, and then when they guess what, they're winning. They're winning the Stanley Cup. People want to go there. People didn't want to go there before. And the tax situation was the same, and the palm trees were the same. Now they're winning, so people want to go there. Look at Carolina too. Like, I don't know. Look at the Maple Leafs. People want to go there, even though the taxes. Like, I just don't know. It's even if there is some truth to that, like on an individual basis, on a team basis, that is not true. And you should not be saying that as the GM of the team who just rehired an old coach. Like, I don't know.
Literally. Well, and like that, we've talked about this. Like everyone knows that if you go to Vegas, you're eventually going to get unceremoniously cut and traded away. And yet players are still going there because they want to win. And I said this when we talked about the Trouba trade, is that I personally, there are certain NHL markets, like I personally don't want to live in Florida. Like, and that has palm trees. Like, you can't just assume everyone wants to live everywhere for the same reasons. But Shayna, you cover the Sabres a little bit more closely. What did you make of Kevin Adams' availability?
Oh, it was bad. It was so bad. And like, here's the thing. People love to use the tax conversation. Now, taxes are a reality, and sometimes they will make a difference. When you get offered 6 million in Florida versus 6 million in Buffalo, it's going to make a difference. Now, there are other differences that will come into the conversation as well because yes, players are in it for the money, but there's other things to think about like your chances of winning, the environment you're going to play in. Everything matters. And with the Sabres, it has been the same story year after year after year. And they showed so much promise 2 years ago. And you think how long ago that feels already, because if they had built on that momentum, they probably would be a playoff team right now. But instead, they tried to get more defensive without really changing the roster enough. They signed iffy contracts, but it was the coaching that tried to put a defensive system that killed what made them special. And now this year, you hire a coach who is a retread and go, oh, it's not working. And listen, I think Lindy Ruff, in some ways, made sense for them because you look at what he did with the Devils, a defensively flawed team with a lot of rush-based talent, and look at how they clicked. It's totally true. And I get the appeal there, but you can't sit there and say people don't want to come here for XYZ. Like, no, they don't. If you had no taxes, maybe you would be getting more players. Yes, sure, okay. But that's not the reason here. And if you can't get players to come there and sign contracts in free agency there, that shouldn't be the backbreaker because free agent contracts sometimes are not the end all be all because you're signing a player at the wrong point of their career anyway. They have had all the cap space and picks to send offer sheets. Okay, say players don't want to sign them. There's another thing called trading players. And a lot of players get traded that don't have no movement clause or no trade clauses. They've had the cap space, they've had the assets to make these moves, but instead you just see each deal burning them. Like, they got rid of Sam Reinhart. They got rid of Jack Eichel. And yes, the situations were not great when the players were traded and they have rebounded elsewhere. But like you're saying, now players want to come to Buffalo to play with Josh Allen. You had your Josh Allens. They're gone now. Even the Middle Stafford Byram trade, it seemed like it had potential and now it's burning them. And you're like, I don't know what you want. Like it's such a tough situation and it just feels like they're never gonna progress at this point that it sucks because they have talent to support. I feel like they should have had a much more aggressive offseason. I understood they said, let's see what the coaching can do with a similar roster to what we had last year because we had all this potential the year before, right? Now everyone's a year better. I wish they had made that move over the summer and just gotten one or two good players, like one really good right-handed defenseman and one really good middle six winger. And like maybe then you would have more potential and then you could say, okay, it's not working out. But like this, I feel like they're just wringing their hands and making excuses.
Well, there's one more team that I want us to discuss. And Sara, you're going to go first on this one because, again, you're our hashtag Canucks insider E5.
I was just
Um,
there.
uh, and so you clearly have mind melded with what's going on there. And it is the Vancouver Canucks. There's some changes going on here. And it's funny because obviously being where I am, I listen to a lot of Vancouver sports radio, Sportsnet 650, and I listen to those guys talk and I'm like, oh my God, the Canucks are just screwed. And then I pull up the standings. I'm like, and they're third in the Pacific. They're still in a playoff spot. It's fine. But there is some news going on, and they are things to be positive or concerned about. Let's start with the positive. As we mentioned already, Thatcher Demko is back. He played in his first game since last year's playoffs and gives up an OT loss to St. Louis, but he was back. We'll see if he's fine today. That was a concern even at the end of last season before he was permanently out. So that could be a pro. Another sort of pro is that JT Miller, who left the team for personal reasons, is back skating with the team. He skated yesterday. We'll see what kind of timeline he might have to come back and play for the team. No details on what he has been managing away from the ice. But on a con side, Philip Hronek, who plays alongside Quinn Hughes on that first defensive pair, is out for 8 weeks. He had a shoulder injury that he sustained in game. And so while that is recovering, it was decided that he would also go ahead and get some lower body surgery for something that was bothering him as well. And again, if you listen to Sportsnet, you would hear that the sky is falling and they're only good when Quinn Hughes is on the ice. They are 3-1-2 in their last six. Sara, vibe check on the forever persecuted Vancouver Canucks.
I think the two in that 3-1-2 is kind of the concerning part. It's just kind of the the overtimes. It makes you unsure about the team, the way they kind of collapse sometimes. I mean, it's not the most steady foundation that the team is relying on. They are without JT Miller, who is one of their top players. That is for certain. At the same time, the sky certainly isn't falling, but I understand that it's such a chaotic thing, the Vancouver Canucks are. Like last year, their PDO was off the charts, and last year they kept winning games they had no business winning. This year is a more realistic adaptation of them, where they're losing the games they didn't have any interest winning, but they're also winning the games that they should be winning. So all around, it looks like they're going to make the playoffs. And now they have Demko back, and hopefully he stays healthy. And I think, yeah, you do not need to panic about the team, but like I think the nature of the losses is obviously something, and the like not being able to like waiting for the other shoe to drop with the goaltending situation. So it's good. It's so good that Demko is back now to stay. You're so unstable if you're like wondering what is to become of the goaltending situation, which is why I think even if these Avalanche goaltenders are kind of a perceived downgrade from what they thought they had in the beginning, cutting that uncertainty loose and saying, we know what we have with these guys more than what we have with the train wreck that's happening right now. Like, I think there's something to just know like that helps. So we'll see.
And Shayna Lankinen has been a good help in net. Seelovs has very definitely struggled. And there's some other narratives going on around the Canucks. They can't seem to win at home. Their only win at home in the last, it looks like 10, is over Columbus, which is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team, depending on where their level of play is at. And their only wins in those last six that I just cited are over Buffalo, again, to Sarah's point, that took overtime. At Detroit, that took overtime. And the aforementioned over Columbus at home. So they can't seem to win at home, and they're definitely not beating good teams. They lose to Minnesota, to Tampa Bay, and to St. Louis. I usually discard a lot of those narratives in terms of home and away, but are there things to be concerned about with Vancouver?
Yeah, and it feels like they weathered a lot of early season injuries, right? Like they handled the Demko injury, and a lot of it's because Lankinen stepped up. But you kind of saw him start to hit a wall. And right before Thanksgiving, like, did he bounce back? Yes, absolutely. I think limiting his workload into a 1B capacity is going to be good for him because he's never played this volume, and I think it'll help him in the long run. And then you'll have two really good goalies to lean on because you don't want to run Demko into the ground. So like you can find a positive there. But the Miller absence, I think they managed that really well for a while. But after, they didn't have their whole second line for a bit there, and they put together a really good top line of Sherwood, Pedersen, and DeBrusk, and they got that going, and their best players going, and now their big offseason additions going. But now it's like, okay, they're going. You need more. If you're going to contend with the good teams, you need more. So to get Miller back, that's going to be really big. I don't think it's good how the narrative started spiraling, and I wish the team could have put that to a stop because I think maybe changing the vibes would have helped a little bit too. But most importantly, like getting that player back, that's a big deal for them. But I'm legitimately worried about the defense because I think even before Philip Roenick got out, you were like, okay, they could use one more defenseman, and now it's like, well, now you really need that defenseman, and you need him sooner than later because like a Susie Myers pair that they've deployed against top competition has been abysmal. So you're already looking at it going, okay, there's a weak point that you don't want to have. How can you make this work? I think Quinn Hughes has been absolutely fantastic, and he's still fantastic even without Philip Roenick. But like, you have one good defenseman instead of like one really stable pair and one really good sheltered third pair. Like, you need something. I wonder, do you go after your organization's third Pedersen and go for a Marcus Pedersen? Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't Alex Carrier make sense because Nashville's not doing well? Maybe. Could you try to get Jake Wallman from San Jose? Maybe, but you have to do something. And they showed last year that willingness to go for the early trade with Zadorov. That was a good thing because I think it's always good when, first of all, the earlier you trade for a player, especially if they're a pending UFA, the longer you get them, the more value you're paying for instead of 2 months of action. But it also gives a player more time to adjust to your system and then click with it. So now that you have an injury, obviously you have a little less leverage because teams know you need it now, not later. But why not go after it now? And then once you have Philip Roenick back in sometime in what, February, you can have a deeper blue line as a result. I think that is going to be like the big question now. It's not just what can you do from within to help yourself, it's can you get the help that you've been missing?
All right. We will be keeping our eye on all the dismal, depressing hockey and all the teams that are overreacting as we usually do. But for now, it is time to wrap up this episode with everyone's favorite game, except for Steven's, and that is Fuck, Marry, Kill. And the PWHL is quiet this week, but we do not forget them. So this week, our game centers around the U.S. team's jerseys. And we still love all of our teams in the PW, but we're going to Fuck, Marry, Kill the three jerseys of the U.S. teams because they're new this season and we're excited that these teams have names and have logos. Sara, you are going to go first. The jerseys of Boston, Minnesota, and New York. The floor is yours.
Okay. Oh God. I don't know Minnesota's, so I'm gonna have to look this up right now quick.
It's the purple. It's the fleet.
Okay. I just want to look these up one more time. But have Shayna go first, and then I want
Okay.
to look these up.
Shayna, go.
Okay, I'm gonna marry the Fleet because
Ooh.
they're my second favorite overall in the entire league. I like the name's a little awkward still and a little clunky, but like the way they've translated it into the jersey, the whole theme feels very consistent. I like that the logo kind of looks like a throwback to the Whalers, so you have that Northeastern hockey vibe. Um, at first, I didn't love that they went with navy over black, and then the more I looked at it, the more I liked it because it feels like it makes sense. The waves in the jersey, the striping, everything, it comes together in a way I absolutely love everything about it. So I have to marry that. It's really tough because, okay, I'm going to I'm going to fuck the Frost. Um, they were the jersey I was second lowest on overall when they came out because we do like little power rankings on this. And there is so much empty space on it in that bottom right quadrant on the front because I have issues with the logo. It feels very incomplete. But the purple, the two-tone purple is such a unique color scheme in sports. To have purple is kind of unique in the first place, but to have the light purple, we've never seen it. It's gorgeous and it looks so good on the ice. So I feel like you don't notice that empty space that it has. So I think it has potential and I want to fix it to make it better, but it has promise. So I'll fuck that. I will kill New York. Now, I have to say, I don't like the logo and I don't like the name. So that is a big thing for me. But I love the consistency with the teal that they did with the New York Sports. But while I am killing it, I will give it credit because I did get to see a jersey in person the other day at Dick's Sporting Goods, which is so fucking exciting to be shopping. And then remember, oh shit, they sell women's hockey jerseys here and see it in person. It's gorgeous. The stitching on the logo is seriously so nice, the details. So while I'm killing it, like I'm sorry to be killing it, but I have to.
And yeah, I misspoke. I confused the fleet and the frost, which is in part a challenge, but here we are.
That
All
confused me,
right.
but guess what? It gave me time to look it up, and now I'm ready.
Yeah. All right, Sara. Yeah, the floor is yours.
First of all, Shayna, this purple erasure is Minnesota Timberwolves erasure because they have a throwback purple jersey because of Prince. Because Minnesota Purple Rain, Prince. So I'm
I
marrying them
wanted
because
them to be the Purple Rain. I wanted their name to be
yes,
the Rain, even if it was the G like the Ontario Rain. And I
that would have
love
been
that the Vikings
perfect.
have purple.
Yes, we love purple, okay? Purple, and I'm marrying that. I think it's gorgeous, and I love the purple on purple. Like, let's be monochromatic queens. I am killing the New York. It's ugly. That's ugly. I don't like yellow on blue. I don't like that type of stuff. It's not my jam. I'm sorry. Love the team. Beautiful team, bad jersey. I am fucking the Fleet. I love the Whalers type jersey. I love the green and white because green and white was the Canton Bulldogs when I was playing. So my niece gets to get one of those Boston Fleet jerseys for Christmas, and it looks a lot like what she wears anyway. So she can imagine herself in that jersey one day.
Love that. All right. I'm gonna just throw it all up in fire and flames. I'm
And
gonna
marrying New
marry the
York,
New York
right?
jersey.
Wow, please.
I actually like it. When I think about like the one I'd want to wear, and I think it's visually interesting, and I like the New York in the back, and I like the complexity. To me, some of these other logos are a little too simple, so I kind of like the complexity of it. The colors aren't my total jam, like you said, Sarah, but it's the logo that really does it for me. I'm going to marry Boston because, again, like you guys said, I like the throwback to kind of Whalers and that whole feel, and it matches the name. I would have loved a little bit more interest in the color story, and so, but I will marry Boston, and therefore I will kill Minnesota. For me, purple isn't my jam, so it's a little harder for me to connect with that spiritually, but it's still great that we have teams with jerseys and names and logos, and it's awesome. All right. There we have it, my friends. We have brought you another full-time episode. We're so happy Sarah is back. We're so happy that she had a wonderful birthday and that she had a wonderful trip to the Eras Tour. There is no one who deserves that joy and celebration more. We love you so much, Sarah. And we didn't get to officially wish you a happy birthday person to person. So belatedly, we love you to the moon and back 10 times over. Happy
Love,
birthday to you.
thank
Yeah,
you.
happy
Love you
birthday.
too. Love all of you too. And anybody listening, we love you.
Anybody listening, you can
Almost.
Everybody's listening.
Everybody's,
Yes.
you can
Anybody.
follow, if you love us, and only if you love us. No, just kidding. If you want to follow us on social, we are at 2_much_man on Instagram and Twitter. On Blue Sky, we are 2-much-man. We are on YouTube. I forget the URL. We'll put it in the show notes. And if you want some merch, we even got a recommendation for some Power Kill merch, Shayna. So we'll see if we're feeling
Ooh,
that. But you can do your Christmas shopping and shop small either at Shayna's Etsy store or at too many men merch.com. None of that money goes to us. Well, Shayna's Etsy money goes to her as it should because she's doing the things. But our Too Many Men money stays in a fund that we turn around and give to people and organizations who are doing what we ask you all to do. And that is something no matter how big or small to make sure that hockey truly is for everyone. We will talk to you soon.
love you again.
Bye.